sacred grounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sistahs on Sacred Grounds. I'm your host, Stephanie Butler Adams. Let's go. In this episode, celebrating creative excellence. Creative excellence is something everyone can tap into and might even actually lead you to a lucrative, fulfilling career. Well, let's talk about how faith, arts, and entrepreneurship come into play when using your God-given creativity to stimulate your imagination, spawn innovation, build your brand, and move forward with clarity towards a greater work and purpose. We have all that and more for you right here at Sistahs on Sacred Grounds. Creative excellence. You know, when you think about creative excellence, you could think about your imagination, your innovation, or just the way that you show up in a space. But when all those things collide, amazing things happen. And today's guest is going to teach us and share with us how she used her ingenuity and her perseverance to be the phenomenal woman that she is today. So today we have with us the one and only Marlita Hill. Marlita Hill is a choreographer, multi-published author, and has 20 plus years experience as an educator who creates, writes, mentors, and hosts podcasts across topics of faith, art, and entrepreneurship. Her work focuses on identity, which includes helping her clients define who they are as creatives and provide them with the clarity they need to build their brand and present their uniquely curated work to the world. Marlita is an adjunct instructor and MFA graduate with Belhaven University in Jackson, Mississippi. She showcases her own work and provides masterclasses, choreography, and residencies through a special program entitled the Speak Hill Dance Project. She is the founder of the Kingdom Artists Initiative, which mentors professional artists of faith. She forms instructional partnerships and curriculums nationally with colleges, arts organizations, and churches in order to help disciple their marketplace. Welcome, Marlita.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are excited today because we got to talk about this creativity. I mean, I look at you and I see beauty and I see creativity from the top of your head, right? All the way down to your feet.
I'll take it.
Everything in between. The hair, the earrings, everything, everything on the outside. But when we look at creative excellence, it really does start from within, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
does.
well, I know that, we are both the new term, creatives, right? Who knew that creatives was a noun until a few years? It became a noun like overnight. But today's show, I really am so excited to have you with us because you are an artist and an educator and an entrepreneur. And you talk about in your journey how faith and arts and entrepreneurship kind of came together for you. How did they come together and take shape for your career? Can you talk to us a little bit about that off the back?
Absolutely. So for me, I say that my journey started when I was just an artist trying to build a career by faith. I actually started in the faith space and I didn't even really know I was an artist. I was 15 years old, and just really quickly, there is a beautiful couple, Al and Hattie Hollingsworth, who have a program called BOSS Program, Building on Spiritual Substance. And they teach youth entrepreneurship based on biblical principles. And they have a resort up in the Idlewild Mountains called the Al Hattie's Resort. And every kind of holiday or special day, they would have these carnivals. And I would go up with my trainer that was at my church to these carnivals. And one day, this dance ministry was about to minister. And I had heard of dance. My grandmother and my family took us up to all kind of, cultural events all the time, plays. So I was very cultured in the arts, but they were never anything that interested me, as in this is something that I want to do. But this one particular day, they had announced this ministry over the loudspeaker, and I heard something inside say, "Go watch." And I was like, I'd never heard it before. I didn't know what it was, but it persisted and it persisted. I learned later that was the Lord speaking to me, but that was the first time I can ever remember hearing him speak directly to me. And so I did go watch. And that dance ministry, which was the Hush Company, led by Stacy and LaQuinn Meadows at the time, they started to minister, and it was like an elephant sat on my chest. Well, that changed the entire trajectory of my life. One of the program mentors, she saw God dealing with me, and she said, "Do you want to meet them?" And I said, "Yes." That was on a weekend. I was at rehearsal on Tuesday, and here I am 20 something years later, still doing it. And I've had the ability to build this incredible life.
Wow. Well, I think that that is probably a little bit of a similar story that a lot of creatives have, especially when they're called to the thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what you experienced from my observation and listening to you was you were called to this thing. So you were called visually. You saw inside, you felt, and then you started to act,
Yes.
on what was happening. So you became one of your terms that you've coined is an edupreneur.
Edupreneur. I didn't coin it, I discovered
Okay. Well,
it.
you discovered it. I'm saying you coined it, but because I had never heard of it, right? But you've written several books, and we're going to get into that in a second. But what exactly is an edupreneur?
So basically, an edupreneur, I discovered, is someone who builds a business around education and around educating others. So you, Miss Stephanie, are an edupreneur, and I am an edupreneur because what we do in our respective fields is we teach others particular aspects of our field. I did not know that I was a teacher. That was something else that I discovered in dance. And so the arts has really been the catalyst for a lot of self discovery for myself, not only for who I am and what I'm good at, but it's also broke open my path. So it's been really, really wonderful for me. Yeah.
Sisters on Sacred Grounds. I love it, and I love that term because we really are. And until I learned it from you, I had never thought of myself as an edupreneur. But I love that, and I think that that's something that we can share with our sisters to say, you know what, you can tap into these things, and you don't have to be one or the other, but you can be both and. So Marlita, you are a beautiful Black woman, creative, educator, in higher education even, and you're living and you're working and you're moving, around non-Black spaces. Okay. How is it that you've been able to maneuver race and gender, but still staying true to who you are? How have you done that?
Something that's very interesting is I have learned to be unapologetic about who I am in those spaces. And I have been particularly fortunate because the spaces that I've gone into, I've gone in as an older woman who knew about herself. Um, One, my grandmother, I have to credit her a lot because she instilled pride in us. She took us to the NCNW events. She took us to Allenstown and those kinds of places. She took us to the African American museums. So history was something that was, really powerful. And honestly, I always grew up in non-white spaces. I'm in Southern California. I was out in the suburbs in Walnut. And so I always grew up around those spaces. Um, but I was very fortunate to be able to go into them having a very rooted family, and also really learning and having the confidence of being myself. And I think my art allowed me to do it, gave me the space to do that.
And so as you're moving around, we're talking about our culture, really. And one of the things that we can experience sometimes is lack of acknowledgement, of our culture. So as you are maneuvering through race and gender, and you're a professor, and you're dealing with students, even though you grew up in non-white spaces, some of those non-whites have never been around us.
Right.
So when you're dealing with the whole lack of acknowledgement of our culture, sometimes even our expertise or our historic contributions, to the arts, there can sometimes, it gives us pause. I'll just put it that way, right? How have you observed this from one region, I'm going to ask, to another? Because I know you've traveled the world, and you grew up in Southern California, but somehow you got to Mississippi. And I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear that story. So is it different in different regions, the lack of acknowledgement?
Yes, I would say, I wonder if I would say, I'll say it like this. It manifests itself differently. And it's interesting because in Mississippi, I am in a Christian majority white space. And even still, there is a lack of, there is an ignorance that they don't acknowledge, right? They don't know, because all they've been in is majority white spaces. And so when you're in majority white spaces, or even majority anything spaces, like there were certain things for me growing up in my family that I thought, oh, everybody on the planet does this. Oh, it's just Black people. Oh, okay. Oh, it's just Southern California, but oh, okay. You know what I mean? And so in our relationship, there has had to be a conversation with them to go, no, that's not everybody. This is just you and your community, and there are other voices here.
So did you find yourself being the spokesperson for us in those
we are always the and I've had to,
especially, I mean, I really want to understand how you what that journey was like from the West Coast to the South, and why, how'd you end up there?
How'd I end up there? Yes. So I actually lived in Baltimore for 3 years. That's where I got my bachelor's, moved back to California. I got my bachelor's in dance with a K through 12 certification, moved back home to California, realized I did not want to teach in public ed, although I ended up doing it at an art school in downtown Los Angeles and loved it. But after that, I really exploded into my choreographic career, and that kind of thing. And then the Lord told me to put all that down and begin to develop my program, the Kingdom Artist Initiative. So I put that down, and there was a point where after I had published the second edition of my first book, he asked me to begin to research Christian colleges with dance programs and to send them my book. So I did the first time. I found about 16 colleges with dance programs, reached out to them, 4 people responded. So I sent them those 4. I wrote my next book, told me to do the same. So those 4 people I reached out to said, hey, I wrote another book. So I sent it to them, and one person responded. And that was Cynthia Newland. She was the chair at Belhaven University. Well, we corresponded over a couple of years. Then eventually she brought me out as a guest artist to Belhaven University. We, began a wonderful friendship. And then one day, Miss Stephanie, I swear this is how it happened. I went to the grocery store. I was minding my business. I pulled up in my driveway. My phone dinged, and it was her. She said, "We've been approved for a teaching assistantship. You want a free master's?"
Wow.
That is how I ended up in Mississippi.
Wow.
Sisters on Sacred Grounds. That is amazing. That's amazing. So in that space, you leave Southern California, you're in Mississippi. Is it in Jackson, Mississippi?
Jackson, Mississippi,
In
yes.
Jackson,
Mississippi, Belhaven College, and you're doing your thing. If you were to advise or, just give a little nudge to some of our non-Black allies to say, how could they best promote inclusion?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would say is there needs to be an internal recognition for themselves that I am not the only experience that exists here. And that is something that all of us have to do in when we're in homogenous spaces and we go in with other people. You and I have had to do it. We've had to navigate recognizing, okay, when we go into majority white spaces, whatever we've experienced at home, with our family being majority Black, we have to recognize I am not the only experience here. And we, by necessity, have to develop an empathy for other people. So that's what I would say to my non-Black friends is, first of all, an internal recognition that you are not the only experience that exists. And the second one is, since you are not the only experience that exists, the second thing is be proactive in learning about other experiences, in learning about other contributors. There was something, and I have to say, to Belhaven's credit, the desire has been there to be more inclusive. Something we have found, and I'll say it like this, something we have found is implementation is a whole other story. And so I and a couple of other of my colleagues are being very persistent about, okay, I know implementation is uncomfortable. I know you want to fall back to the way things used to be, but you said you wanted better representation. You said you wanted to be inclusive. So I'm going to help you.
Yes, I love that.
I'm going to hold your feet to the fire in love and say, no, ballet is not the foundation of all dance.
Uh-oh.
So no, there are other contributors to this art form that you need to acknowledge. So those kinds of things are super important.
Well, I think that you've tapped into one of those areas, that all of us as dancers, as choreographers, have come across. And I think that it's important to bunk that myth. So Marlita, Dr. Marlita Hill, would you please tell our sisters and maybe our brothers and whomever else is watching, could you please let us know why ballet is not the origin, we love ballet. We all studied ballet. But why is that a myth for ballet being the origin of dance?
Yeah, it is not the origin. It is not the foundation. West African dancers don't study ballet. Bharatanatyam, classical Indian dancers, ballet is not the foundation of that. Ballet is the foundation of Western classical dance. That is a very small part of the dance canon. So before ballet was ever even created, nations were dancing. Come on. All over the globe. So that is the creation of Western classical dance. That's it.
And I think that's important to say, and to say to our younger creatives who are coming up, because how many times have we been in spaces with our students that we teach, mentees that are coming up, and they have great aspirations, to get into college, to do dance, to be a dance major, to be a professional dancer, go into the industry, etc. And they can't even pass admissions because they have no ballet background, because of the way that the curriculum is set up, and the admissions process for the dance departments throughout the nation are asking them to have X number of years of ballet. And so I think that it's not that we're saying that don't take the ballet. Absolutely take the ballet. But my goodness, universities and colleges, can we walk it like we're talking it? Like you said, if they said they want to change the face of, whatever.
Yeah. And that's really important, because I was one of those students that couldn't get in. It took me 9 years to get into a dance program because I didn't know. Remember how I told you I've mastered all the wrong ways? I was totally ignorant. I didn't know you had to know how to dance, be trained, and that means specifically be trained in ballet and modern, because that's what colleges want. But I didn't know you had to know how to do that to get in. That wasn't a part of my upbringing. Going to dance classes wasn't a part of my upbringing. I didn't, I didn't know about that. And so I was traveling all over the world and getting paid in dance ministry. I was an artist. And if we define a professional artist as one who gets paid, I was a professional artist. But because I didn't have training in those two fields, I couldn't get into school. And that's something, just like you mentioned, is if we're wanting to bring more diversity into collegiate dance spaces, then we need to allow for an array of experiences coming in. They're not going to look like the svelte, they're not going to do that.
And again, no shade. No, we're talking real talk here. There are some amazing movers and dancers out there who have just raw talent, giftedness, and are being snubbed, if you will, in certain admissions programs. But even though we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go. And I love how you said, I want to help them. I want to help them make it happen. So that's a conversation that we have to keep having, Marlita. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more with the amazing Dr. Marlita Hill right after this. Sistahs on Sacred Grounds. Welcome back, everybody. So we've been talking with Marlita Hill about creative excellence, and she's sharing her journey, an amazing journey, really. One of the things you said that I'm still thinking about is how it took you 9 years to get into a dance program, because you didn't know that in order to get into a dance program, you actually have to know how to dance. You thought they were going to teach you once you got in, right? But I think that's amazing, and I think that's just, those are the little nuggets that we can share with people and with students who may be thinking just like you, Marlita, right? So I want you to, one of the things you talked about was implementation and the lack thereof. And I would love for you to speak to the person who has a phenomenal imagination, very creative, has ideas out the Yahoo, right? But not so great in the execution department. You know, that visionary that's just all over the place, because one of your expertise is helping us get clear. What would you say to that person if you could give us, just a few short strategies?
I know this mind. I am this mind. One of the things that has helped me so much in the onslaught, the tornado of ideas brimming in your brain, is to write it down, right? Instead of holding it all in your brain. So, number one, the most important, get you a notebook, record it on your phone, open a Google Doc, whatever, and write all of those ideas down so that you're freeing that space out of your brain, right? The another thing I would say is then make a choice. Where am I going to start today? What am I going to start with? And then finish that, because execution and implementation is the thing that's going to make the difference. So yeah, those are the two things immediately I would say is number one, write it down. Number two, which one are you going to start with? You have, I say it like this with people. Instead of thinking that I have to get this all done now, one of the things that has helped me is to understand I am building a life and I am building a body of work, right? So I can take these one at a time because I have a lifetime to execute them. And some things are for now, some things are for later. So when you write that list, what is it now that you can do? And some of the things you don't even have resources or connections for yet, but you do have everything you need to take your first step.
Wow. I, I love a lot of what you're saying to us today, because it's really making us just practically think. Okay, one, write that down. Get it out of your brain. One of the things that, and I don't know if you went through this as an author, one of the things that I tell people when I was writing my books, I say, it's not that important early on that you find a big time publisher and you get a contract, and because it doesn't work like that all the time. Just write the book. Get it out. Get it out. Write the book, and then let the chips fall where they may, So I think that's powerful of what you're sharing with us, those basic steps. So when we're talking about execution, Marlita, and implementation and things that how we're going to go about this, I want to know what happens to you, Marlita, when you really tap into your genius zone. What happens to Marlita? Because you said you're building not just your brand, but you're building a body of work.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to Marlita when she's in her genius zone?
Oh, when Marlita is in her genius zone, wonderful, wonderful things happen. No, something that I have recognized is in my genius zone is getting clarity out of chaos. Because again, my mind is a chaotic mind in the sense of I'm a generative person, I'm a visionary. So there are always ideas coming. So helping get to the essence of a thing, right? And helping other people get to the essence of a thing is something that I did not know I was really good at. And what's interesting is I see that cross all of the ways I work. As a choreographer, I have to get to the essence of a thing so I know what that dance is about. And then everything else is about shaping in alignment with that essence. A book, same thing. I got to find out what the essence of that book is about. Then the words, the chapters, the design, all of that falls in line with that. My teaching a lesson. I got to find out what the essence of what is the objective that I'm trying to execute. What is it that I'm trying to help my students be able to do or learn or that kind of thing. So I noticed that this zone of genius is at the core of everything that I do as a teacher, a choreographer, and an author.
Well, let's talk about your book. Let's talk about your latest book, because you've written one, two, three, four, five books. Y'all, sisters, she wrote 5 books, okay? It can be done, okay? We're talking about creative excellence today. So, Marlita, your latest book, though, is called Nail Your Niche, right?
Nail that niche. Mm-hmm.
Nail that niche.
Yes.
Nail that niche, okay? Okay, so then my question is, first of all, what's a niche?
Mm-hmm. So for me, I define a niche as the direction toward which you've determined to focus your efforts, right? Your niche is where you fit in a space. So like if you think about, let's say the arts, right? If you think of the arts as like this large conversation with all kinds of parts, your niche is where do you fit? Where is your space in that conversation? That's your niche, your space. And then when you find that space, that's the direction you're going to focus all of your attention towards. So for me, I'm a choreographer, but I'm not a choreographer of all kinds of things. Or I teach dance, but I'm not a dance teacher of all kinds of art forms. I'm a specific kind of dance teacher. So in the dance space, my niche is whatever it is, right? And all of us have a space within the subject matter or the field that we're in.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because I'm wondering, as I listen to you, do we all have a niche? Does everybody have one?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay, so you said we all have one, and it's just for us to tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and your book helps us to get clear about that niche, because we I call it like, your dominant gift. What is your dominant gift? Because we all have a lot of them, but what's that one? So okay, so tell us, what are some of the biggest myths about the process to nailing your niche?
One of the myths is that it's easy. No, it's not. It's not that it's difficult, it's that it's a process. Because you are taking all of these gifts, all of these ideas, all of these kind of directions that you're pulled, and you're trying to discover, no, you are discovering what is the thing that ties them all together, right? Right. So how do they all fit together in this space that you find yourself in? So one of those is, oh, it's just easy. It is simple. I'll say it like this: it's easy, but it's not simple. It's a process. Number 2, if I make a decision, right, to acknowledge my niche, then I am missing out on all kinds of other opportunities because I have chosen to focus my energy towards one direction. And that's not true. Actually, the opposite is true. And I love the story of zip ties. So zip ties were created just to bind airline wires together. Zip ties. That's all. That's it. But they were so clear in their purpose that it made it easy for other people to look and go, oh, it ties things together. Oh, that's clear. Will it tie this together? Will it tie my artwork together? Will it tie? So you look at zip ties now, and there are a billion uses people have found for zip ties. And it's the same thing for your and my work. When it's clear to us and it's clear to other people, then all kinds of resourceful ways to apply that and expand that become clear to you and to other people.
Wow, I love that. That is such a wonderful example. So we're going to take another short break, everybody. And listen, I hope your creative juices are flowing. I hope that you are being inspired today to start to think about, you know what, I do have a niche, and I need to tap into that thing. So here at Sisters on Sacred Grounds, you do know that we like to drink coffee, right? We must have our daily sip. So we're going to take a short coffee break, everybody. And when we come back, more of our wonderful conversation with Dr. Marlita Hill. See Something, Say Something is not just a phrase encouraging the importance of everyday citizens to report suspicious activity to local authorities. For creative-minded individuals, See Something, Say Something is key to expressing our views creatively, visually, verbally, and physically. Creative people are great observers, catching details that others miss and using their passion to bring the mundane and mediocre to life. Creatives love to people watch and are curious about the lives of others, which is how some of the most powerful creative work is born. Because when some see circumstances, creatives see endless possibilities. And that's today's coffee break. Sistahs on Sacred Grounds. Welcome back, everybody. So we're talking creative excellence today, and Marlita is sharing her journey to excellence creatively, right, in that space. And there's so much to it, Marlita, that you said it's a process, and I get that. But sometimes when our parameters are too broad, and our vision, we thought it was sharp, but it kind of gets a little vague, how do you help your clients narrow their focus? And we talk clarity, you talk clarity. That's your genius. How exactly could you help us to bring it in?
Yeah, so well, I'll say first of all, a big part of that is the courage to bring it in. Right. We got to deal with the emotional things of of feeling like I'm not reducing myself or I'm not missing out on something. You would think that doesn't have anything to do with it, but that is a huge part of allowing yourself to find that. And then something practically that I did for myself was when I was working through myself, working through this clarity process for myself, was I wrote everything that I do down. I believe in pen and paper. I don't believe in trying to work things out in your head. So I believe write it down on pen and paper. So what I did was I wrote down everything that I do and everything that I love to do. And then I wrote down what I do in those activities. So I'm a dance teacher. Okay, what do? I do this, this, and that. Okay, I'm an author. What do? I do this, and that. So all of the things that I did. And then I was able to look on paper and go, oh my God, I do this all over here. And I do this. And I was able to visually see the connections between what it is that I do. And then I was able to press into those connections and then do the work of going, okay, now how can I streamline this? Because I don't believe in like eliminating things out of your life, because God said he would expand our tents. So it's not about eliminating things, but it's how can we proceed into those in an organized manner, in a way that's not going to overwhelm us. And clarity will help you learn how to do that.
And clarity will also help you do another thing that you say is important, which is delegate.
Yes.
One key characteristic, I think, in this creative excellence is learning how to delegate. And can you just quickly tell us, why is it so important for us to delegate?
Well, one, you were never meant to build it on your own. Now that was a huge lesson for me. is you're not you were never meant to build it on your own, nor can you build it on your own. And I remember what my pastor taught us about delegation that was so key and important to me is, what are the things that only you can do? Find that out, and then everything else, delegate. So like, I am the only one that can write the book or cast the vision or whatever. But I don't need to also be the one that's designing the book cover. I'm not a designer. I don't need to be the one editing the podcast. Give that to somebody else who knows how to do that, because it takes me 20 hours at least. And then 20 hours I could have been using that for the thing that I'm really good at. And that
I love it.
Yeah, that the only thing that I can do, right? Or should I say the thing that only I can do in this vision.
And we just have to keep telling sisters, delegate, 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 give it away. Trust somebody to do the things that come on. We've got to. So, Marlita, in the last few minutes of our conversation today, I know that you've created in both sacred and secular spaces. What would you say is the number one challenge you've observed among your clients and your colleagues in these circles in trying to advance to the next level of their creativity?
Grit.
Mm.
Grit. There is just an acknowledgement really quickly that I'm going to have to grind for this in secular spaces that does not exist in Christian spaces. And I want to put a caveat on that, because we know in Christ we are not to grind. Let me say it like this. It's a different way, right? The Lord will lead us into things, but because we don't have that mindset as much, we don't do our part in the Lord leading us. So the Lord leads me, but then I have to do something with his leading, right? And that doesn't translate so much in people that I've worked with in Christian spaces as it does for secular people who know I'm going to have to do something about this.
But Marlita, this is so important. Why? Why is that?
I don't know if we're taught to. I honestly don't know if we're taught to. There is an intentional teaching and also kind of a collective ethos that exists outside. Nobody's going to help you. And you know that. So you know if you don't do something to move yourself forward in secular spaces, if you don't become proactive in your own journey to a certain degree, then things are not going to get done. I think there's an acknowledgement of that. And of course, people will help you. But in general, I'm generalizing. Where over here in Christian spaces, sometimes we acknowledge the wonderful help that the Lord is to us, but we don't teach how we are supposed to participate.
We're going to take one more short break, everybody, and we'll be right back. Sisters on Sacred Grounds. Welcome back, everybody. We've been having a great conversation today about creative excellence, okay? So your imagination, your innovation, and nailing that niche. The book by Marlita Hill, Nail That Niche. Make sure you go get it. We're going to tell you how to find it. Now, Marlita, we're going to do a quick lightning round, a creative lightning round, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to just give me your first answer. Just, whatever comes to your mind. It's not anything, no trick questions, anything like that. I just want you to pop out your creative juices here. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. If you were the president, what would your first order of business be?
Deal with poverty.
What is the biggest opposing force that you've encountered on your creative journey?
My own mind.
What is your favorite accomplishment?
Teaching.
All right. Do you ever create hidden meanings or messages in your work?
Yes.
I do want to elaborate on that, but I don't have time. Okay. All right. What kind of job have you ever had that we would be shocked to know?
I was the check-in person at Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, for Chuck E. Cheese. All right, all right, all right. Do you prefer sharing your work with others, or do you like it when you are in the background?
Actually, the background.
All right. And were you ever discouraged? And if so, how did it affect your creativity?
Mm. Yes, I was discouraged, and it made me uh, less willing to put things out there.
Mm. All right. So, in thinking about the things that you've accomplished, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Mm. Don't stop.
Don't stop. Don't stop. I love it. I love it. And by the way, if I could ask for Marlita Hill, what does self-care look like for you? Because here at Sisters on Sacred Grounds, we're always talking self-care, and it's important, especially for creatives. What does it look like for you?
There are two things in particular. One is giving myself space to decompress, and that manifests itself in lots of different ways. And number two is having a community that feeds into me. Because as an educator, we pour out so much, as you know, I'm always pouring out to other people. And so having a community that pours into me and will keep me straight.
Oh my goodness, Marlita, this has been a great conversation. And I really, really hope that in us sharing, because, we talk Black excellence, we talk, being an excellent believer for those of us who are Christians. But in talking about creative excellence, I think that sometimes it's not something that we really think about every day. We strive for excellence, but in our creativity, I think there's a whole world that we have not tapped into. And so I'm just hoping and praying for you sisters who are watching today that you have gained a few nuggets from Marlita Hill and her journey and be inspired by it. So Marlita, tell us how we can find you.
Absolutely. So you can find me at nailthatniche.com. And on social media, you can find me at the niche nailer.
I like that. The niche nailer, honey. If you go to Marlita for some help, if she takes you on as a client, she's going to help you get clear. And I love the fact that you're very calm about it.
Yeah.
You're very calm and direct about the clarity, okay? I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much, Marlita, for being with us today. And for all of you who are watching, you make sure and follow us on Sisters on Sacred Grounds on all of our platforms, on Facebook and Instagram. And check out our website. We have some fabulous things there for you to check out and see what's the latest things that are happening, all the wonderful events that we're doing at sistersonsacredgrounds.com. We so appreciate you. And as always, as I leave you with these few words, sisters, I want you to stay safe, be well, and stay beautiful. All right, until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.